Hello, I'm Taipei and welcome back to the second channel video. So when it comes to knowing the local currency, the local language, and even the highest government of the place that you're in, the laws that you have to follow, these things almost always line up with the country that you're visiting, right? Except when it comes to the country of China, the rules get a little bit different because it really comes down to who you listen to about what China actually is. Is China a political entity, or is China a region of different political entities which are all under one sort of umbrella, even if they don't want to be? And that might sound like a really complex question, but it's one that's always been in my head of like how Chinese are Taiwan, how Chinese is Hong Kong, how Chinese are Macau, all these different entities that come under the same umbrella of China. What's the deal with them? Are they really independent countries that just have to say they're part of China, or are they all really connected and all similar to each other, just under different governments that happen to have very different rules, different economic systems, different languages, different even plug outlets, police systems, laws, all of these sorts of things? And that's something we're going to be finding out in today's video, because right now I'm in Taiwan, or to use its official title, the Republic of China. This is a country that claims to control all of China, although it really controls the island of Taiwan, and the People's Republic of China, the China that you probably think of, claims to own this island as well. It's a reciprocal relationship in that way, except it's not really that simple, because there is an independence movement here in Taiwan, except their independence movement isn't one to try and break away from this government, but is instead a independence movement to solidify the status quo. This is a very cute cat. We can use it in the video at some point because everyone loves a cute cat, right? Oh no, it does not love me though. Kitty cat. I don't think you meant to stroke foreign cats actually. I'm like quite high up a mountain right now. I don't know why there are cats here, but there are. What a cute little thing. Kitty cat. Meow. I'm sorry, I want to stroke you, but oh. I'm sorry. That'll never not be a segment in these vlogs. It's like cat stops to stroke a cat, or not stroke a cat, depending on the circumstances. But yeah, the Taiwanese independence movement is one of the very few independence movements in the world which isn't trying to break from the status quo and, break away from a government, but rather they just aim to keep the status quo, except to change the country's name from being China, the Republic of China to be precise, to being Taiwan instead. They want to change the history books, change all these sorts of things to, realign the history to match what the reality actually is. Whereas the Unionists, which again, in most countries, the people who are anti-separatists, the Unionists, or whatever you want to call it, the Federalists, whatever, are usually the people who want to tie the country together. In this case, they want to break from the status quo and to actually, again, fix relations properly with mainland China, which, by the way, same people, same rough language, even though they use a different version of it. There's a lot of similarities between the two countries, except when it comes to everything, except when it comes to the economic deciders of life, which is fascinating to me because the way you can break down most independence movements around the world is there is a split between the economic argument and the cultural argument. People who want to stay in the larger federation, say it's the EU or the UK, or say it's Spain and Catalonia, or any independence movement, the economic people are like, yeah, well, it's better for the economy if we stay in the larger entity, even if it's even if they're different in some way, even if there are disagreements about it. Whereas the the cultural movement are like, well, we're a cultural separate people, we should have self-government amongst ourselves. But here the situation is flipped in a way that you don't really see elsewhere in the world. Here the economic argument says we're already economically independent, we do a lot better economically independent. However, the cultural argument is, we have ancestors, we have friends, family across that strait, why are we not a part of the same country? And from that lens, it's very fascinating to see this whole thing, because the whole international debate around Taiwan, the whole international debate around Taipei, the whole international debate around the Republic of China is basically people trying to draw emphasis to one of these two things or the other. Is it the economic argument, or is it the cultural argument? Is it the people argument, the kind of ethnic argument, if you will? And the fact that I flip-flopped at least mentally a few times, this kind of proves that this is the case. By the way, in case you don't know Taipei, the one thing that I knew about the city and have known since I was like 7 is that Taipei 101 is one of the tallest buildings in the world. Or at least it was when it was built. It's since been surpassed by a lot of buildings, but there is Taipei 101, and there is the Taipei city line, because I've been in some mountains this whole time. But yeah, let's go check out some of the city, and let's explain the weirdness with Taiwan, and let's also explain how this ties into Macau, Hong Kong, etc. And what better way to show that there are different rules than to show that they can talk about the one big thing that, of course, you never talk about when you're in, CPC China, and that is 1989. And what happened there? There was no square, no tanks, no deaths, nothing like that. That's a thing that is allowed to be discussed here, and is a fact that happened and an obstacle towards the eventual unification or whatever, and one of the big reasons for independence or whatever. Okay, place shift. We're now in Jiufen. It's a little bit outside of Taipei. There was a big mining industry. It kind of collapsed, and now the place is kind of like for tourists, where it's like very old towny and on a mountain. It's what you might picture when you picture Taiwan, or just Asia in general. If you feel like being generalization-y like that, that's a word that's definitely real. But yeah, while we're here, rather than pushing words around all day about what Taiwan actually is right now, because the reality is the situation is very clear in stone, and then the way you interpret that situation is how you interpret whether like, oh, Taiwan should be independent, Taiwan is independent, Taiwan should be part of China because they're all the same. You know, you can argue in so many different ways depending on how you push those same words around. So rather than talking about that, how about we talk about some facts regarding the situation? Because one of the things regarding like, is there one China or two Chinas or four Chinas, is how do these different Chinas talk to each other? And the interstate relations between Taiwan and China, you know, because they split after the Chinese Civil War in the 1940s. Because of that very tense split they had, they didn't have formal relations for a very long time. It was always assumed that one day the ROC, Taiwan, would retake the mainland, or that the mainland would retake Taiwan. But obviously that hasn't happened. So how exactly do the two Chinas talk to each other? And the long story short is, internationally, China insists there is one China, it is us. You cannot recognize the other China. Even the United States of America, you know, the biggest power player that could push for Taiwan relations, they still have very limited, very loose, non-official relations with Taiwan, whereas they see China as the true owner of all of that sort of stuff. And it's a very interesting stance to take, but basically, internationally speaking, there is one China. But as far as the two Chinas themselves, let's talk about Republic of China and the People's Republic of China. For the longest time, they had no relations, but starting in the late 90s, they've actually started having cross-strait relations. They've eased up a lot of things, such as, you know, there was no way for Chinese people to travel to Taiwan, or vice versa. That has been basically fixed. There was no like airlines but for the Republic of China or the People's Republic of China that could fly between the two routes. Now that's fixed. I flew Air China to get here, a PRC, a Beijing-based airline. Oh, they're all over China, but you know, an airline that's based in mainland China was able to fly here. And it's interesting that these cross-strait relations basically come down to the fact that, like, we acknowledge that the status quo is that there is two separate governments of two separate things, but both sides seek to eventually one day have their, you know, situation. It's interesting because China insists that Taiwan has to keep claiming all of China. It's the one, again, it's the reverse of so many situations where China needs Taiwan to keep on claiming China so that China can keep on claiming Taiwan, and that one day they can push for that reunification, that, or unification, if you will, depending on how you want to say things. And that's really interesting by itself. But what I also find interesting is that the official Chinese policy is that there is one China. All of these different territories are all part of the same entity. Chinese people are there, we own it, is the rough rule of China. But the interesting thing regarding this is that, you know, Taiwan and Hong Kong and Macau all have separate immigration policies, as we'll see when we go to Macau tomorrow. But the interesting thing about all of these immigrations being separate is it means that not only do foreigners have slightly different rules for entry, it's very hard for a foreigner, a Westerner, let's say, to go into mainland China, especially more than 24 hours. Again, you'll see how this comes up later, but it also means that it's hard in the reverse. Mainland Chinese people cannot easily go to Hong Kong, Macau, or Taiwan. In fact, for me to get into Taiwan, it took me, I just had to bring my passport with me and promise to stay for less than 90 days at a time. For a Chinese person from mainland China just across the strait to stay here, they need to get an official permit, and they need to be as part of the tour group. The same is true for Hong Kong and Macau. You need an official permit, a real reason to go there. And it's interesting because China claims it's all one thing, all one area, and obviously they have separate immigration policies, but also the immigration policies, the things that the Chinese, you know, what China requires from you to cross, leave their border to go to these places is much higher than for any other country. And it's interesting because there are parts of China which are harder for you to get into if you are Chinese than other parts of the world. It's easier for you as a Chinese person to go to Japan, of all places, which is easing up the visa-free travel for Chinese citizens, than it is to go to other parts of China. And that's where you can see this whole kind of thing breaks down. When it comes to an immigration level, there is immigration between the different Chinas, and that's not only sanctioned by the different places that might not want to, you know, have 1 billion people have access to their countries, but also by China themselves. And yeah, you also see the fact that, like, oh yeah, the currencies are all very, very different. The currency here is the NTD. I just want to talk about this because I love currency of Toycat. But yeah, the currency here is called the NT, New Taiwanese Dollar. And again, everything's priced in dollars. It seems very expensive because it's like $40 is roughly a pound, or $30 is roughly a US dollar. So it means that, like, I don't know, I paid for this drink right here 40 Taiwanese dollars. I still don't know if that's a good deal. It's cheaper than back home at least. But yeah, the fact that the currency here is the dollar, it's that there's a Hong Kong dollar, there's a Macau dollar, there's no link between the $3 and the Chinese yuan, and even between each other. There's just 4 very separate areas, all with their own very different links to China. And Taiwan's very much the unambiguously, man, I just considered, what if I drop my camera down there? It's just gone, right? Like, this whole video never sees the light of day. Anyway, Probably not a thing I should consider. I want to go up the rest of this mountain, but I don't think this is enough water to last another kilometer. What do you think? Make bad life decisions or give up on my dreams? Sad life. Yeah, I definitely need to head down. I will die. It's sad though. Anyway though, we've spoken enough about Taiwan, or the Republic of China, and the very interesting, precarious state that it finds itself in. Let's talk a little bit about Hong Kong and Macau, because I've got a flight to Hong Kong that's going to take me to Macau. Again, it's tomorrow for me, but it's in 10 seconds for you. See you there. So I've landed in Hong Kong now, because Hong Kong is a lot busier of an airport than Macau airport is, and I vaguely understand there's a way to get to Macau, but actually going through Hong Kong customs, border control, etc. And I guess I'm gonna find out if that's a thing right now. By the way, most people don't care, but just in case you do, there's my plane in the background. Same exact plane that took me all the way from Beijing to Frankfurt. Also took me on this little hop from Taiwan to Hong Kong. Nice little flight. There's so many a day, by the way. Like, just show on screen real quick. This is a bit of editing work. But show on screen the number of flights between Hong Kong and Taipei every single day. It's crazy. Okay, so just behind me you can see the immigration for Hong Kong, but according to a sign I can see over here that confirms my initial beliefs probably just about, there's ferries to Macau and the mainland just over there. Mainland is how you usually refer to China when you're talking about not Hong Kong, Macau and Taiwan. You know, just the PRC China, but you don't want to say, you know, just that one sovereign state, because that causes some issues, so you say the mainland. And yeah, you can catch ferries straight from here to there. If for some reason you're not allowed through Hong Kong immigration, but you are through Chinese immigration, then it would probably be fine. Actually, I guess like an airline probably wouldn't let you fly. If an airline would let you fly to Hong Kong, but you somehow were not able to access Hong Kong, or didn't want to for whatever reason, you could do that. That's a needlessly niche situation, actually, isn't it? But actually, you know, show on screen right now, list of countries that Hong Kong has visa-free reciprocal access to, and which countries have China has the same with. There's got to be a country where you can get into China easier than you can get into Hong Kong, but there are cheaper fares, or like, you know, Cathay Pacific, very nice airline, shown off previously, so maybe that's a thing. Anyway, mainland Macau ferries, just to the right over here. I'm excited to see how this goes, because there's some money involved, I believe. I don't even know. So I'm going to be honest, that was a bit pricier than I was expecting. It was 270 Macau dollars, or MOP for some reason. Macau pesos. It's Macau dollars, I'm 99% sure. But it was 270 MOP, which converted into USD is quite a lot, actually, given that's just a one-way ticket. I'll pay the same back when I come on the return. And it's also 70 minutes of ferry, with something like an hour wait until the next ferry, because there's only one every hour. So it's actually a pretty brutal addition. In my head, it was like, well, it was slightly cheaper to fly to Hong Kong, and I got to fly one of my favorite airlines, and I still think it's almost just about worth it. But in reality, what was an hour and a half to 2 hour flight has turned into like 4 hours. So something to consider if you want to go the same option. Again, I would still just about consider it worth it if the Cathay Pacific fare is, you know, lower or just about the same. But in other situations, gotta remind it, so apparently a hassle. Okay, so after about half an hour of waiting, I've got to travel through the internal bits of the airport. Like, there are some departing passengers, there are some arriving ones, and we go to ferry boarding, just down here. And this is the big boy ferry that'll be taking us over to Macau, it looks like. Looks pretty cool, actually. It's called a water jet, apparently. Let's see if it is one. Also, you get some nice views of the airport and landing planes in the distance. And just like that, I've gone through the hour or so journey across by ferry. I've gone through Macau Migration, and now I'm in Macau, which again, to simplify, is Portuguese China that is also Las Vegas of the East. As you can see, the signs are in Chinese, and then they're in Portuguese, and then they're in English. English is the third language here. What a crazy world, right? But yeah, the interesting thing about Macau, and the comparison that often gets made, is that Macau is kind of like the Vegas of the East, or more bluntly, Chinese Vegas or something like that. But the truth is that Macau is actually much bigger by pretty much every metric than Vegas is. By tourist revenue brought in, by amount actually spent here. The size of the casinos, the largest casino in the world, hopefully I'm going to see it later, is actually here in Macau. It's I think it's the Venetian. Put it on screen right now, it might be the Sands. But yeah, the largest casino in the world is here in Macau, and that means that, you know, this isn't Vegas of the East or whatever. Really, Vegas is, you know, American Macau, or I guess Macau of the West. Although really it's east of Macau. World maps are confusing when you go from Asia to America. So we pretend that it's off the west, even though really you'd go east to get there. But anyway, so today we're gonna get on a bus or something. I'm not actually sure. We'll work it out. So I don't want to do this for every foreign country that I head into, but I do have to say, this one, very, very, very hot. Like Taiwan was like, okay, this is a thing I'm dealing with. Here the humidity is even higher, it seems, and the heat is higher on top of that, so it feels like it's 40 plus. I feel like I'm in one of those war machines like you have at the entrance of supermarkets in the cold season, but all the time, and it's always blowing directly above me. And it's not a common feeling. That might sound like hyperbole. No, literally, that might be more pleasant than what is happening right now. Again, you can see looking around me how it looks a little bit like, I would say, Vegas mixed with some Super Mario 64. But yeah, everything's roughly the same, but then also much bigger than Vegas. But also, again, with a weird twist on it. Maybe the twist is just that I'm, you know, like dying of heat exhaustion right now. But everything looks further away, but feels closer than the Vegas equivalent. Like, I might have told the story once. I walked down the strip in Vegas and it took me an hour just to go what looked like it'd be 10 minutes. Whereas here it's the reverse. It looks like I'm an hour away from my hotel there in the background. But according to a map, it's something like a 7-minute walk. So we'll see how that works out. So I've checked into the hotel now. If you're curious, to get from the ferry terminal to the casinos, all of the casinos run their own free shuttle buses. I don't know if it's free in the other direction. I would assume not. But yeah, I'm staying in a pretty nice hotel. If you don't know, I use hotels.com. Sometimes there are secret prices for high-end hotels that aren't allowed to publish, you know, like to everyone. What's it called? Like easily available. But to members they can, and that's why I have. It's called the St. Regis. It's a bit too nice. Again, I don't like too nice in a hotel. Maybe that makes me a snob or whatever. Wait, are you a snob if you don't like things that are nice? I don't know, but just funnily enough, they're like, oh, we've decided to upgrade you because we see you're a VIP in their program or whatever, and they're like, you get a room with a view now, and I'm like, oh, that's exciting. You can see the Eiffel Tower from your room, and I was like, well, that's a bit of a weird thing. And looking out here, you can see like, okay, so that's not the best view in the world. I mean, there's some nice pools over there. I should go check those out later. But then what's this? Oh, there you can see there's the Eiffel Tower visible from my room. It's a bit silly, you've got to admit. But yeah, it's very Vegas. Everything about this is Vegas. Just a bit closer together, it feels like. So yeah, Macau, the Vegas of the East. Or rather, Vegas is the Macau of the West. And it goes to show of like the money. So I withdrew 200 British pounds worth of Hong Kong dollars, thinking that's overkill, but I had to give 1,000 as deposit for the hotel because I only bring debit cards because I'm a debit card man. Whole story behind that. So like I've got 1,000 to gamble, and I'm like, oh, this is big. 100. That's like $130 US or something. This is one bet at the vast majority of tables in this casino and in most casinos. In some, I've read online that there are some casinos that sometimes do 100 Hong Kong dollar bets, which is about, again, $15 US, but the lowest you'll usually find is 30. I've got 3 bets at a 50 table or 1 bet at a regular table with $1,000 here. That is absurd to me. But yeah, we're gonna go lose this money now. So I'd love to talk all day about the wealth and etc of Macau, and it really is absurd, like looking around anywhere, just how much is being shown. But let me show you the Venetian. If you've never seen the one in Vegas, it's the same thing where like they've recreated the outdoors, but inside it looks like we're in Italy right now. It's like close to midnight outside, but in here it's always daytime. Your body has no clue what time of day it is. And yeah, you can also get boat rides around, I want to say, if that's your favorite way of getting around inside. Then a boat ride is something you can do here. But yeah, it's a moderately absurd thing, but that's kind of the point of Macau as far as I can tell. Moderately absurd, lots and lots of wealth from lots and lots of sources that all comes down to the same thing of like, hey, gambling being the one place where you can legally gamble for a very long time away, and being the hub of it and being a place where the rules are relaxed on it tends to create a lot of wealth. So I had a really good time last night. I won just under 1,000 Hong Kong dollars and then lost half of what I won, but still 500 Hong Kong dollars up, about 50 GBP, Great British Pounds, or about $70, I want to say. So yeah, not a bad result all in all, and I got it because I played the dice game. Again, every continent seems to have like a go-to de facto game. There's like blackjack in North America, there's roulette in Europe, and I feel like here it's this free dice game that I always forget the name of, but it's really, really fun. There's free dice, it feels like magic things are happening, and in case you're curious, by the way, as to why there are always so many Asian gamblers in any casino around the world, like literally pick a country, pick a casino you go into it, it's going to be, you know, about 50-50 between you know, people like this and the locals. And the reason behind that is usually because there is a much bigger luck factor playing in, like you know, I don't want to say superstitious because that sounds offensive, but there is a higher believed skill factor that comes into luck here than in many other cultures, and because of that you win because you got lucky and you deserve to. You lose because clearly you know, your bad luck it precedes you or whatever. And I think that's obviously not everyone believes that, but it's something that interests me a lot because the number 4 is unlucky. So on this dice game, again, forget the name, but on this triple dice game, I just bet 4 a bunch of times, and you better believe voting against everyone else. Again, there's like a big table thing. It's a dice game. I bet against everyone else, and I did pretty well for it. So yeah, I bet on 4 a lot of time, and because no one else, I assuming did that, because again, unlucky number, I'm assuming a lot of people lost money. But your boy Toy Cat's up 50, so that's all that counts. Anyway, I'm in one of the few parts of the country that's pretty green, you can see looking around me, and even then there's moving escalators I've been walking on this whole time, and I love that craziness thing of like, oh yeah, this is the old town, this is the historic village, but also moving escalators, because who can be bothered to walk on the ground all that time? So yeah, just under a mile from the Cotai Strip, from the equivalent of the Las Vegas Strip, you have an old town like you see right here. It's again very cobbly, very colonial feeling. It's kind of cool that this is just so close, because there is a real place, a real you know, like settlement here that's been overtaken by gambling to some extent, but in the best of ways, you know, and we got so rich from it that white folks send anything else away, which in my opinion is a cool thing. But yeah, looking around here, it feels like we've taken a step into a Europe, maybe a Europe Chinatown, but it's not a giant pavilion. But look around this place, it feels like a generic European city, you know? That's my take on things, at least. I do not know how road rules are like here. Oh, it's crazy to see this place just nestled in everything else. A part of me wonders, like, as soon as I see a place like this, like, is this an expensive place to live, or is this undesirable because you're not near the good stuff, there quotes? That's something I'd love to find out. Maybe we should go to Starbucks first. So I decided to take the casino route home just because it's air conditioned in here and 30 degrees with a bunch of humidity out there. And yeah, turn the 500 into 1,500, so that's nice, I guess. By the way, I always want to clarify, because again, gambling is bad, but no, more seriously, like when you gamble, you are buying entertainment, and sometimes the cost for entertainment is very high, sometimes the cost is negative. But you've got to know, every bet you make, there's no beating the system, there's no anything like that. It's just sometimes you might get lucky and find $500 on the floor, but that doesn't mean it's a viable income strategy. And the same is true for every piece of gambling besides, I want to say, poker, because there are some odds involved in playing other people, but even then you need to be very good to have a very tiny edge, and for the most part, the house has an edge on everything, and that's why they can build all of this. Side note, this is never covered in, like, oh, when they're talking about Vegas and stuff, but big casinos usually have surrounding them lots and lots of stores, usually high-end luxury stores, and that way, you know, when you roll it big, you've got a place to spend it. And oh, what's that? The casino conveniently makes some money there too. It's kind of funny in my opinion, but it's also interesting maybe. But yeah, the Vegas parallels here are really insane. I think maybe deliberately so, because again, a lot of people would otherwise go to Vegas, but you know, instead, why not stay in your home country, air quotes. I have now landed in Shanghai. So I went from Macau to Hong Kong to Taiwan to Shanghai, and all 4 of those separate places had their own separate you know, immigration and their own separate customs. And it was really interesting because the one in Shanghai just here was the one that seemed most friendly on the outside, and in theory was quite easy because all I had to do was fill out a form. But in reality, no one else was actually using the same 24-hour visa-free exemption that I was using. It was literally, there was like, okay, go to the end of the airport. There's one dude who opens a counter just for me. We have a big conversation. Like a girl comes in and like she's like, so this bit on your passport here, what does this mean? And it's the birth town. My birth town has a weird like next to the sea thing in it, and it's like, so that means that it's next to the sea? Why is that in the town's net? You know, we had a whole we had a whole discussion about it. I've never had anyone from any other country ask questions about that. Like usually they just look at the passport, go, yes, this is valid. But we had a lot of questions about what I'm doing, where I'm going, blah, blah, blah. And then here I am in Shanghai. So one of the weirdest reasons I've always wanted to come to Shanghai is, you know, Maglev trains, you might know about them, they float, whatever. They're going to be a thing of the future, maybe, but only one actually exists in current, you know, production in the world, and it is the Shanghai Maglev. That's right, there is a Maglev in Shanghai, and that is crazy cool to me. Like, because my flight was delayed and because of that huge immigration hassle, I want to say I have, like, you know, 11 hours from here to when I'm coming back to the airport, but I'm gonna at least use some of them to ride the Shanghai Maglev. The Maglev, which apparently, if you're paying attention to the signs in the background, is apparently that way, so let's go get on that thing. Ah, here it is, right next to the Starbucks, the McDonald's, the Sukiya, which is a Japanese gyudon, what's it called, donburi chain, and a spicy wok. Shanghai is one of the historically most international places in China, and that's going to be something that's going to be fun to see for 11 hours, of which I'll spend at least 6 sleeping, right? So this is the Shanghai Maglev, the fastest train in the world that's actually in production, that you can buy tickets for and that you can actually make journeys on. And I'm kind of excited. We've got a km/h counter up there, and it's gonna get pretty high, I imagine. So a thing that I found notable about this was the fact that when you look between the train and the platform, the little gap, you know, the gap you meant to mind, it's huge because it's floating. This train is levitating. Is levitating the word? You know, I don't care if it's not the word. We're magnetically levitating above the track, and it's going to be kind of cool. Also, I forgot to mention this, but I believe this is about the only production, you know, like in-use train ride in the world where it's free seating. It's the same as a 737. I mean, it's more spacious than a 737 by a little bit, but yeah, it's got the same seating layout, which is, again, most trains are 2-2, the Shinkansens are 2-3. They one-up the game here with free, which is going to be something we talk about later when it comes to the capacity and how much is used, but for now, yeah, free, fun. I'm excited for that 0 to start going. 5, 4. Oh, well, you know, starts a few seconds early. So yeah, that's our acceleration, going pretty steadily up actually. Because it's a pretty short journey, the cost and acceleration too fast are kind of silly. So, they don't. Maybe a better view is how the road goes past, faster and faster. And how that noise is getting worrier and worrier. Oh man. This is getting crazy now. We have now reached 300 kilometers an hour, which is, you know, a pretty high number, I think we can all agree. But the interesting thing is I don't feel like I'm going 300 kilometers an hour. Again, this is something that everyone intuitively knows but no one thinks about, and it's because of the fact that you feel acceleration and because of the fact that that's how your brain works. And in case you're like, no, but you're going so fast, it's the same way you don't feel the earth spin, and the same way how inside this train, if I played catch of this thing, it won't go flying back there at 300 kilometers an hour because it is also going at this speed. Everything inside this train is going that way at 301-ish kilometers an hour. Very specific number. So by now you get the point. It's a very fast train. We're going very fast right now. But the interesting thing about the Maglev is the fact that not only is it revolutionary, but it's the fact that it's not actually very successful. And successful is obviously a nebulous term. It's successful in that it shows to the world that, again, Shanghai is here, we're technological, and, you know, like, we do cool stuff. Have you done this cool stuff in your country? No, you haven't, but China has with, you know, its great might. But the interesting thing to me is the fact that it's not financially profitable. You know, the rider numbers never met what they were meant to, which is why if you look around, it's actually fairly empty, right? Like, it's not a particularly busy train, and that's because of the fact that they overestimated how many people would ride something like this. Again, the free seating was like, oh, we're gonna need to get so many people on here, and yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that there's like empty spaces or anything, but you make that conclusion yourself. Yeah, in fact, the you know, the amount of ridership this was getting is not anywhere near expected, and that's partly because the line was only funded from you know, Shanghai Airport to like halfway between Shanghai Airport and Shanghai. You still have to change the metro halfway through, so most seasoned travelers, most regular travelers, are going to get off you know, halfway through and change the metro, or instead they can just ride the metro the whole way. But yeah, the train also doesn't go as fast as it can because of the much higher costs in going you know, 400 kilometers an hour versus 300, and you know, especially for a journey this short where we were at that speed for something like 2-3 minutes. Again, going to an extra 100 kilometers for an even shorter amount of time because of that acceleration time, you can start to see how, like, oh yeah, this all makes sense now, doesn't it? That was a very fast journey I was on, and now it looks like, you know, I'm kind of getting off again very shortly. And it's cool, but the faster journey time almost makes the higher cost harder to justify as well. There is that interesting duality in a way where the better something gets, the faster a train service gets. It also needs to get more expensive, but also seems harder to justify for certain people. And when you involve a change, when you involve all these sorts of things, because again, we're not in the Shanghai city centre right now, we're a little bit outside of it, we're going to switch to the metro. Anyway, that was probably my fastest journey from city to airport, or, you know, outside city roughly to airport, and it was pretty cool. Anyway, now I'm going to get to my hotel. It's going to be something like 11:30 by the time I get there. I'm going to try and eat something, probably McDonald's room if I'm being honest. I really want to try beef stretch noodles, but I just don't think I have the time. And now it is time to get off the train. And that right there was my journey on the Shanghai Maglev train, or the SMT if you will. SMT sounds like a weird internet abbreviation for like shaking my teeth or something, but it's not, I assure you. Maybe it is actually. So I just woke up, and apparently this is what everything looks like. I will say, I'm shocked by just how modern in a lot of ways it is. I mean, it makes sense, it's one of the global cities, right? But also how every now and then there's something that's a bit confusing or a bit off, like I couldn't pay with my cards to, you know, get some breakfast this morning because only Union Pay or Apple Pay is accepted, Android Pay not for some reason, which is kind of odd. But also every now and then, just every now and then, someone makes eye contact with me and does not break it the entire time. It's happened maybe 4 or 5 times so far. Just you know, maybe an older gentleman just like locks eyes like they're about to say something really important the entire way past, and then they turn their head keeping the eye contact. I don't know if that's like a thing that you know, I'm just not familiar with, but it's a little weird, a little bit terrifying, and it's something I've never had happen anywhere else in the world. It feels a bit like a horror movie almost, but in a good way. So yeah, it's a shame I didn't get more time here in Shanghai and in the mainland China in general, because there's so much to talk about with regards to how things go here, right? It literally just happened again, by the way, with dude on the floor over there, because I don't know, maybe it's just the thing you do here. Maybe that's how you show respect, like instead of the handshake, instead of the polite smile, you lock eye contact and you don't break it, and so one of you loses an eye. Maybe that's just something that I'm missing. I just want to point out there's a place up there called Ear Cleaning and Relaxing Cultural Experience Museum. Ear cleaning, yeah, and relaxing cultural experience museum. I mean, good combination of stuff, I guess. But yeah, I just wanted to say that Shanghai has been beautiful so far, so interesting, and there's so much to talk about with regards to how the governance here and the system is so different to the other ones, you know, socialism of Chinese characteristics, etc. But you know, with only an hour in, I don't feel 100% qualified to say anything beyond the fact that it's very different, to say the least, and the I guess a lot of other things are different to match that fact. And I think that's interesting. Maybe you do too. So thank you very much for watching this video. But as always, second channel. Don't care. Bye. I'm so sweat. Like, it is 90-something% humidity and it's 30+ degrees. All I am is wet. I feel like I'm in the shower always. Just constantly. It's not very good. It's not very nice. Let's do this. I think this is the hottest I've ever been recording a video.